profit private foundation, which has played a big role in aiding the members of the former Soviet Union. And in the back, Stuart Thorson, one of my childhood friends from Minnesota, also a Norwegian, who's a computer scientist at Syracuse University, has initiated the first U.S.-North Korean scientific collaboration. So it was interesting to visit Pyongyang in December. There is, in fact, a power plant. This is the only power plant I could see. The air is basically pristine clear. When you leave Beijing and you're choking and you go to Pyongyang, first thing you notice is how clean everything is. But in fact, the lack of electrical grid means that many buildings are unheated. Probably most buildings are unheated. And in some ways, Pyongyang reminds me of the Twilight Zone. It's a city, it's there, but there's something missing. And what's missing are the people. Where is everybody? I mean, this is the center of the capital. There's very little car traffic. There's very few people. They're all mostly walking. And there are many reminders of the glorious liberation of North Korea and remembrance of Kim Il-sung, the founding leader, an individual who Jimmy Carter met and conceded was a remarkable individual, probably the equivalent to George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, and Thomas Jefferson together. On the other hand, some bad things have happened in North Korea, and the regime, after 60 years, is still in power and beleaguering its citizenry. It has built some magnificent structures, such as the Pyongyang subway, with many homages to the leadership and remembrances of the Korean War, and reminders of their term juchi, which refers to self-reliance. They can do it alone. They're the last remaining Stalinist state. And these posters are, again, calls to the public to work hard on behalf of the country. Now, in spite of this Stalinist hostile atmosphere, science is ongoing in North Korea, and the scientists are like we are. They're trying to do their careers. Their ambition is to improve the world for their children and their grandchildren. And we saw no evidence of hostile science. Of course, we're life scientists. We're looking for peaceful methods of science. And the individuals are really very, very considerate, but they're members of the party. And I think that's something that has allowed them to maintain control using often very brutal methods. So the challenge is, can we find some common ground? And what are they reading at the Great People's Reading Hall but Science Magazine? So this friendly individual is a member of their intelligence agency. He traveled with us for a week. We got to know each other pretty well. I'm sure he was reporting on us. But in fact, there is a humanity there. And I think that's the object of science, not to respond to the differences, but to look for the common ground. Mr. Hong, or Dr. Hong, I should say, who was the lead delegation, is someone I got to be very good friends with, and who came with a group last week to the Carter Center in Atlanta, Georgia, where we met with him, a reciprocal visit, looking for ways where we can engage, where we can share what we know. Now, when we first met Dr. Hong in Pyongyang, he shared with me an interesting story. He said his grandson, who lived with him, I think his grandson was 6 years old, had been concerned when he told him he'd be staying at a hotel with Americans for the week. The little boy said, "Bring the rifle." Last week at the Carter Center, Dr. Hong and I, when we met again, first thing I asked him was, "How's your grandson?" He said, "He's fine." "And did he ask you to bring the rifle?" He smiled. He says, "No." The little boy said, "Bring home candy." So, I don't know, maybe there's some in my country who view Dr. Hong as a godless, heartless commie, but in fact, I see him as a scientist. And when we drove south of Pyongyang in the last day of our visit, we passed through a very, very magnificent gate, sort of like the Brandenburg Gate, which was called the Gateway of Reunification. And Dr. Hong has led delegations around the world. He's been to Europe, to South America, to North America. I asked him at that time as we passed through the gate, "Have you ever had the opportunity to go to South Korea, just 50 kilometers further?" And he was very quiet. He thought for a moment. He said, "That's not possible. So far, it's so near. So near but still so far, those were his words. So near but still so far. And it was interesting after I was traveling with these individuals for a week. Well, we never raised political issues, but they were only talking about science. In private, one at a time, members of the scientific group would tell me about things that I didn't ask. For example, their view of the justification for developing atomic weaponry. Well, our view, of course, is this is a threat to world safety. Their view is that maintaining the military is bankrupting the country, which it is. North Korea has 22 million residents. It has a standing army of 1.2 million. It's the second largest army in the world. It is bankrupting them. And I guess there is another view, and I hope with the scientific engagement we can help them realize that there are other methods for national security. But we're going to have a two-way street here. We're going to have exchanges where we and they share openly. Now there are opportunities, and I'd just like to share this one. This beautiful brand new university, Pyongyang University of Science and Technology, has just opened its doors to its first class. The language of instruction is English. This university was not built with North Korean public funds. It was built by the gift of a man named James Kim, a Korean American who lives in Florida. And the opportunities for us to lecture, and I think members of your faculty to lecture in North Korea, may be again opportunities to make contact, to look for common ground. And these will be the best and brightest young students of science and technology in North Korea. So I think there are opportunities ahead. Briefly, I'd just like to tell you a little bit about our trip to Burma. This was last spring. Burma, another country of ill will in terms of U.S. government relations. Beautiful country with great agricultural wealth, but a brutal junta which has been in power now for 50 years. It has magnificent sights to see, the Shwedagon Pagoda, and has a beautiful group of people. Here I am, meeting with the Ministry of Health malaria control team. Now, I gave a lecture to them. I was unbelievably hot. It turned out it was 46 degrees Celsius. But notice, only one of us is sweating. Somehow they have their aquaporins well organized. It was a wonderful group, and they shared with me what we anticipated, that in fact Burma, which is largely a village country, an agricultural country, is heavily infested with malaria. Huge amounts of malaria. And they need our help. We can help, but we have to get to a point where there's some common ground. And of course, oftentimes the common ground comes very slowly. So they held elections last year, and there's no way by international standards they would be regarded as fair and open elections. But Aung San Suu Kyi was released from house arrest after almost 20 years in captivity. And I think this might be a very small step, but a step in the right direction. And I think we need to continue to look for ways where we can engage and encourage the obvious democratic, free societies, but it may take a while. But I think with science we can get there. And so just a few more pictures of people from Burma. A young man blinded in one eye because of a corneal abrasion with lack of access to medical care. Nice young man, but this is a treatable illness. Here we have members of the faculty at the Yangon Institute of Technology. Here's a young physics professor. She would love to come to the United States to study physics. Because of the embargoes and the sanctions, this is not possible. But maybe she could come to Norway. I think we should look for opportunities that are feasible. And of course, it's a rich country in terms of agricultural richness, and a very friendly population. I think Burma is a place where we should look for opportunities to engage. There's much to be gained. Here I am with a group of young novices, young women, young girls who are a year is the female equivalent to being monks at the Shwedagon Pagoda. So in closing, I'd just like to share this concept that the Chinese have long understood, that crisis has two components. And I think in terms of world affairs, we are at a state of crisis. Certainly right now in Libya, there's a huge crisis. And I don't think there's anything good we can do. But there are other dangerous events ongoing. So the Mandarin word for crisis is actually two characters. Wei, the character for danger, and Ji, the character for opportunity. And I think in many instances, crisis is just that. Yes, there's danger, but there may be opportunity, and that's what we should look for. And without being too political, I personally believe our American leadership, this is the scientists, this is one of the proudest moments of my life. I was with a number of other scientists. Barack Obama made a proclamation about stem cell research. And in closing, I'd just like to share with the young scientists that as you pursue your careers and do things in the laboratory, we're behind you totally. But keep in mind that there will be opportunities to do things besides the laboratory, the advancement of well-being between groups. And I think you have a unique posture to do that, and we should continue to support this and look for opportunities. And I think Norway is positioned to be a leader in these activities. So with that, Brother Petter, Doris, let me thank you for the hospitality. It's a delight to be here. I'll give a science lecture tomorrow to the neuroscience group, and then I'll be off to Sweden to do some skiing. Tusen tack.